Welcome to the Athletic FC podcast with me, Ayo Akinwolere. The January transfer window is open, and it's currently the managers who are hogging the headlines. We've got David Ornstein to tell us what to expect this month. We've also got Carl Anka with us as well. Good to have you with us, Carl. Now, we've got some questions in today from a lot of people from the YouTube community, so we're going to try and get through as many of those as possible. But before that, David, I want to hear from your perspective when it comes to managers, especially the moments we've had with Ruben Amorim, Enzo Maresca very recently. What's it like for you in your position breaking those stories?
Absolute hell. It's some way to start the new year for sure. We've had Maresca, what was that, Thursday? New Year's Day? It was starting to rumble on New Year's Eve. Mm-hmm. And then we were starting to get noises in and amongst the reporting of the Maresca story. Even though there was no link to what I'm about to say, people telling me you've got to keep your eye on the Ruben Amorim situation at Man United. And you're thinking, hold on a sec, I'm just dealing with one major explosion to get 2026 underway. Can't even get your head round another. But very quickly you start pivoting and making calls, sort of triangulating your information in a not too dissimilar way to how we would deal with any story, transfers or contracts or ownership situations. And suddenly, you're forming, and I think I've used this analogy before, it's almost like a police diagram, when you've got different faces and they're all linked in different ways from different stories, and there's alibis, and you're trying to think of, how best to check out these situations and what's happened and how authoritative and reliable the information you're receiving is, and you scrutinize it. And it's head spinning. There is a hell of a lack of sleep. And I say that to you today, having gone to bed at like 2 a.m.
Wow.
Got up at 5 a.m. I don't recommend this. This should come with a health advisory warning. Still had time to walk the dog in the snow shower,
who
change.
says men can't multitask?
Get down.
Look at this guy.
Get the granola in, the ginger shot, a black coffee, and we go again. We rev up the engines, and that's what it's all about. Whether it be January, the summer, or to be honest, any other time of the year, because these things can happen. It's just remarkable that two of the biggest clubs in world football, two huge names within the managerial world, have both departed in a matter of days. The transfer window is open, and the fun is just getting started.
Yeah, if we're going to use David's analogy of this being a bit of a detective kind of situation, Carl, I'm going to go all Columbo on you right now. Look, is there any link between the two situations with Maresca and also Amorim speaking out publicly about the hierarchy? But also, I don't know if you noticed, both winning Manager of the Month in the last 2 months.
Yeah, who's
Premier
next?
League. Who's next? Exactly.
If you're Pep Guardiola, you should be looking over your shoulder, aren't you? I think what we're looking at is two clubs in Manchester United and Chelsea who have been very successful in the Premier League, very successful in the 21st century. Two clubs that have very reasonable expectation to be in the Champions League spot season after season after season, but in a more competitive, more dynamic version of the Premier League, don't necessarily end up in those top 5, top 4 spaces by default. And then you have this sort of toing and froing where they are trying to commit to long-term plans, trying to decide upon a figurehead to redefine their version of the club, to which the figurehead goes, okay, well, if I'm going to be the person that you're going to commit to for the next 4 or 5 years, I want more say-so on parts of my job. To which both of these clubs, their hierarchies have gone, oh no, not really. And then in both circumstances, it seems like just a very, very pronounced and quick falling out between a head coach or football manager, however you want to describe it, and one of their bosses. David, is that a fair enough assessment?
Sorry, I was actually just dealing with a transfer story.
Look at this guy.
Can you repeat the point in brief? Because it sounded...
Everything I just said about multitasking, throw out the window.
It sounded, us men were useless. Can you repeat it in summary? Because I want to get my teeth stuck into it.
I think both the Enzo Maresca situation and the Ruben Amorim situation have been two head coaches / managers who have gone, well, if I'm supposed to take this club to the next level, I want more say-so and more bandwidth and decision-making ability, to which their bosses have gone, no, we prefer you to stay within this very fixed remit, to which both of these figures have gone, well, then I'm leaving.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary. You got to remember that, and unless we're missing something here or promises have been broken, the rules of engagement would likely have been set out at the very outset by the clubs. You know, they both hire head coaches on this occasion, which was a departure for Manchester United because Ten Hag was manager by title. And I think it's only the second head coach in Manchester United's history, first in the sort of modern era. Chelsea, that's become the norm under this regime. And at that point, you know, you had two young coaches, relatively inexperienced. Neither had managed in the Premier League previously. And in the case of Amorim, he didn't want to come in the middle of the season, but if there was anybody he was going to break that preference for, it was Manchester United. So this opportunity doesn't come along very often. And when it does, I imagine as a 39-year-old, which he was then, having only really coached in Portugal, Sporting Lisbon, success there. But this, your eyes light up. And although he had a lot of power in that negotiation, which has probably led to him enjoying a pretty strong severance deal, for a start, he didn't question the head coach title at the time. He's questioning it now, but that's with hindsight. So maybe he gave some concessions. Maybe he was honoured to be taking that position. Enzo Maresca had just been offered the opportunity to leave Leicester City. Yeah, he led them to the Premier League, but to step up to Chelsea, you know, a title-winning juggernaut with such modern history in particular, and the potential to work with some of the best talents in world football and have a shot at more success, which he helped them towards. I'm sure he would have been in awe somewhat at the outset, and then as they work their way into these positions, they do become emboldened, which you can kind of understand. Maresca picking up a Conference League title, a Club World Cup, qualifying for the Champions League. He changed his representative to the so-called super agent George Mendes. There's talk that he wanted a new contract, and we reported that he was having conversations with Manchester City about a potential future candidacy if and when Pep Guardiola is to leave. Juventus were rumoured in and amongst that as well. Meanwhile, you have Amorim, who it sounds like suggested to Man United that he would start with his three at the back, but that would be a model, a method, a system that would perhaps change over time once he's brought some stability, some calm to the chaos of, or the perceived chaos of Ten Hag, and you know, it's all very collegiate at the start. Everybody's on the same page, but then you understand sort of that egos grow and politics within clubs, and you realise that this isn't a Pep Guardiola cheeky Bagheera-Stain friendship that dates back to the Barcelona days. And believe me, they have had their issues over the years and tensions, but they worked really well and successfully. These are people coming into new relationships, and as time passes, you see, you know, different agendas, you see different priorities, you see that, you know, for a lot of the Amorim reign at Manchester United, we know from stories that have come out about players, he would have been protecting the squad. As time passes, it seems more recently that he was protecting himself and fighting for his own reputation and future. And maybe you could say the same with some of the comparable comments and utterances and outbursts from Enzo Maresca. And I think it leads to this very salient point in question that is being asked throughout journalism, sports world at the moment is the structure. You know, the rise of the sporting director, you know, the structures that are running these clubs now. It's not universal. You've got Arsenal, Aston Villa, maybe Newcastle, Manchester City, where the head coach, the manager is more powerful. But there are models which are more continental, where coaches are being asked to slot in. They are not the most important person at the club, which maybe wounds their pride. And it's the owners who are getting involved. It's the chief executives. It's the sporting directors, the directors of recruitment, and so on. And I think at those clubs, you're going to have to understand, if you're in the mix to join them, that it's their way or the highway, not your way or the highway. And if it's going to be your way, you're going to have to do something pretty extraordinary to gain that authority and trust and license. And in the cases of Amorim, maybe less so Maresca, they just hadn't earned that in their short stints.
Yeah, Carl, whilst we're talking about Man United, and I want to focus on this because obviously you are a Manchester United correspondent in that respect, what's the last 24 hours been like? But also in what David's saying about sporting directors, should we be hearing from the sporting director at this point? Because this is a big decision.
I would love to hear more from the sporting director at Manchester United. I really think the fan base would benefit from having Jason Wilcox come to the front and to use the verbiage and explain some of the decisions there. Obviously, this is something you see a little bit more in German football. So it's not uncommon in the Bundesliga for a sporting director to come out and explain decisions regarding the hiring or necessary dismissal of a head coach. Very often, on more than one occasion, you will see a Bundesliga sporting director come out after a transfer window and also explain their methods. And Manchester United have tried this in the past. So, at the end of the last summer window, we had a sit-down roundtable with Omar Barada and Dan Ashworth to explain how that window went and their methods and why, for example, why Jadon Sancho departed for Chelsea at the time. Joshua Zirkzee, Dan Ashworth went on the record to explain his job role for a little bit. Now, of course, one of the awkward things there was the game that happened just after the end of that transfer window was their match against Arne Slot's Liverpool. So, many of the comments in that discussion were coloured by the fact Liverpool had beaten Manchester United 3-0 within 2 hours of everything that had been said. So that caused some confusion. And since then, obviously, Dan Ashworth has departed and there's been quite a big change round in regards to who does what. And we at The Athletic really, really like trying to make a family tree of a football club to say this person reports to this person reports to this person. I can hear David chuckling there because very often the moment you create a family tree in The Athletic about how a club structure operates, one of the individuals leaves or disputes where their position is on the family tree. I think Jacob at Aston Villa has done a brilliant one explaining who does what at Aston Villa, but then very quickly after he created his first draft, there were some changes there too. So to one side, I would like Jason Wilcox to speak more about what is going on at Manchester United because it's my job to know what's going on at Manchester United and I'm a little bit confused.
Nice one.
Second bit...
Go.
The second bit in this sort of bizarre institutional chaos here is the situation with Ruben Amorim really feels like this is a situation that was quite collegiate, I'd say, up until towards the end of November, but then quickly things have dissolved between Wilcox and Ruben Amorim over the December period, possibly over player trading, possibly over this loads of conversation over Ruben Amorim's system and his adherence to a 3-4-3 and whether or not it was ever going to change to a back four. And that really seems to be in a pressure point as well.
Okay. Well, whilst we're on Manchester United, let's talk about Darren Fletcher, who's in place in the interim right now, David. We're looking at any other names that might be cropping up in terms of who might take charge of Manchester United for the foreseeable anyway.
Let's show a bit of respect to Darren Fletcher. He's a great guy. He's Manchester United legend and has done some time at the club and in different roles. Very popular, and you don't know, you've seen in these positions before, like when Michael Carrick stepped in. I remember that Villarreal away game, I think it was. He's got a chance to calm things down, put a bit of an imprint on it, get some smiles back on faces, and you never know what effect that will have. Starting at Burnley and then Brighton, I think we'll see a back four. Okay. That's pretty certain. And Man United are considering then a more permanent interim solution, as in. Obviously, Fletcher is fresh to this, so that might just be a game or two. And then do you bring in, say, an Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Michael Carrick, with help from Johnny Evans, reportedly, on The Athletic and elsewhere. Other names I'm sure will be under consideration. Jason Wilcox, at the time of recording this, we hear is starting a process to hold conversations around that and potentially put an interim team in place, depending on how Fletcher does, until the end of the season, when we expect, nothing's setting in stone around timelines, that Manchester United will then do a permanent appointment. They will have a much bigger market then. There are contracts expiring in the Premier League, the likes of Marco Silva, Oliver Glasner. There is also a contract expiring for Iraola at Bournemouth. Still no news on that one. Then you have the World Cup names. So off the top of my head, Thomas Tuchel, Julian Nagelsmann, Mauricio Pochettino, Carlo Ancelotti. And then there could be other managerial changes around Europe that present a very different landscape. There are coaches who will have clauses at the end of the season that are not applicable now. You'll have options who would like to move in the summer as opposed to at this point in the season. And so I can understand why Man United are planning to take their time around that. And you know how this industry works. The names are going to be running wild. They already are. But to my knowledge, there's nothing concrete or crystallised by any means in Manchester United's thinking just yet.
Okay, Carl, very quickly, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer potentially back to Manchester United again. We've seen ex-pros from Manchester United take the club on in sort of an interim basis and have actually done quite well. Would this be welcome news for Manchester United fans if it does happen?
I think it'd be a way to unify a fan base right now that seems quite divided and quite disappointed. Taking a cursory look at the inbox of Talk of the Devils, and there's quite a few fans saying, I'm done, I've had enough, I'm fed up. Whereas the return of a club legend like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer could be a way to give everyone a lift. Manchester United would not be the first football club to return back to a club legend for a second stint in times of, I don't want to use the word crisis, so let's say times of necessity. Zinedine Zidane has had more than one stint at Real Madrid, for example. Yeah. So I'm sure there is appetite among the fan base for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I definitely think if he walked in to the training ground and said hello, and with his wonderful press conference demeanour, that bring a lift as well. And he knows quite a few of those players quite well. So this is a really interesting time for the Premier League in general, in that you've got three very strong teams right at the top in Arsenal, Manchester City and Aston Villa. You've got two spots in the Champions League spaces that are, you can essentially call them fair game. Sort of just a large scrapping battle between Liverpool, Manchester United and others. And then, I mean, this congestion between 5th and 14th is going to cause mighty chaos, not just for United in the manager market, but I also think quite a few other clubs. I mean, I think every single manager that Ornstein has just listed there might be on the radar of Tottenham Hotspur as well, for example.
Okay, well, let's get into one of the questions.
I'm just pleased you didn't mention Liverpool, Newcastle, West Ham.
Don't worry, we've still got time.
I really think the managerial market is about to explode in the coming months and summer.
This is you not sleeping for the next year. All right, let's get into one of the questions from one of the someone from the YouTube community, and this one's from Evan8000, and this is kind of harking back to what we've just spoken about in terms of Manchester United and Chelsea. He says, why would a manager want to take a head coach role for a team like Chelsea or Manchester United when they know they won't be getting the power to push for their ideas and influence the club and the team? That being said, if a yes man is what these clubs want, who could you see being the right man or right fit for Manchester United?
Well, that's a great question, and I'd like to say straight away, it's one of the biggest misnomers and falsehoods, I think, that seems to perpetuate around football is this idea that who would want that job? I could name you about 1 million people, ourselves included.
I'm out.
And many million reasons why these people would be queuing up for these jobs. You seriously think Chelsea will struggle to get candidates? Manchester United will struggle to get candidates? To the contrary, they'll have to be fighting them away because these are plump jobs, irrespective of circumstances, trials, tribulations, alleged interference and meddling, crises. There's an opportunity there at every club, let alone these big ones. And whoever gets it right at Manchester United, which will happen at some point, I'm sure, in the future, and Chelsea, you could say it already is. They've had an element of success within the last year. Then they've got hero status. They've got all manner of accolades and benefits financially, footballingly, reputationally to come with it. And so, yeah, but there is a point here in that those who prefer the sort of managerial influence, which appears to be what Ruben Amorim was saying after Leeds on Sunday, will have to think twice about whether it's the right fit for them, because clearly the hierarchies are very influential. And I totally agree with Carl. It would be really nice to hear from sporting directors of more Premier League clubs. Chelsea have got a number of them, Manchester United. Arsenal, when Edu came from the Brazilian FA, he used to give the press conferences himself. He used to name the team for the Brazilian Seleção. And he came to Arsenal. He wanted to speak more, I think, but it's a bit taboo here, and I'm not really sure why. So Manchester United with their model, I don't know, and I don't want people to take this as David Ornstein saying what Manchester United are doing. It's just we're having a chat, conversing about potential scenarios. They really liked Kieran McKenna last time, and I don't like. I think it's disrespectful, the yes man thing. These coaches have worked incredibly hard in their careers to learn their trade, and they pride themselves on professionalism, and they are surrounded hopefully by good people, and a yes man model just doesn't seem to work. But I get the theory of
it's because you're working under a much bigger structure.
Exactly. I just think it's a harsh way of putting it. So someone like McKenna, I think United saw a lot of attraction in him. His coaching, which was influential at United when he was there previously for much bigger names like Mourinho. His association to Manchester United, which I think we're now starting to see, it's a unique job and place and environment in which to work. Just because you're a great coach or a great name, there are more qualities that are needed that are maybe intangible, maybe in your DNA, and that's why Ole Gunnar Solskjaer tends to put smiles on faces at Old Trafford. But there are so many names that you could draw to this. I know a lot of people have talked immediately of like Glasner. I'm not sure how realistic that is. Eddie Howe, he's ruled himself out in his news conference while we've been recording this. I don't know if he was ever in. So we're going to have that song and dance for a long time to come. But yeah, bit intrigued by like the McKenna bracket of coaches. And Ipswich won't like to hear this. I'm not saying he's going to be in the frame or get it, but that breed who have got a bit of United and real coaching pedigree, and then that top bracket of sort of modern day elite coaches of the likes of Tuchel or Zerbi. I love Carlo Ancelotti, but I think maybe in his stage of his career in life, and Man United,
it's one a bit younger. You're thinking
that's what I would suspect.
Okay, no problem.
It's a great question.
And I didn't. Sorry, I didn't even throw in like an Emery type.
Of
figure.
course.
Now, again, I'm not saying the Spanish Armada is
Villa fans won't want to hear that.
No. Absolutely not saying that's one that's going to happen or even be explored, and that is such a huge undertaking for any club. And fair play to Villa for taking on, because the amount of staff that come with somebody like Unai Emery, executive, football, data, medical side of things, like people describe it being like the Spanish Armada. And so if and when they ever leave Aston Villa, there will be a huge chasm there to fill for the ownership and the hierarchy. But he is a top level coach, and he will be linked with the biggest jobs because of his body of work, and so that's a bracket as well within that. I mean, he fits into the Tuchel group really, but that Premier League experience seems to be crucial, because obviously Amorim didn't have it. It's not gone so well. Ten Hag didn't have it. It didn't go so well. And so the rumblings coming out of United in these last 24 hours, multiple media reports, say that Premier League experience is going to be really important to them.
Okay, what about Liam Rosenior, Carl, who's been confirmed as the new Chelsea head coach, contracted till 2032, a man you and I interviewed on a previous podcast, so make sure you take a listen to that. But I mean, what challenge do you think he has ahead of him? Some might say no real Premier League experience, but the work is done at Derby, the work is done at Hull City. I mean, that's what got him the job at Strasbourg fundamentally. We've spoken to this guy. He speaks well, he's got great ideas, but he's walking into Chelsea.
He is. He's walking to Chelsea, which is one of the more unique footballing ecosystems in the Premier League. Chelsea, I'm speaking a little bit more under Ruben Amorim, had no problem changing their mind on a manager, because they believed very much it's not a mistake as long as we change it quickly. And Chelsea under Bluco have attempted to go for a more long-term sort of sustainable model, but have also gone, oh, well, if that's not working out, so here we go. So I was very, very, very enamoured with Liam Rosenior from our interview in October. I think he spoke very, very well about his approach to coaching, about the way he decided wanted to run a dressing room. He spoke incredibly glowingly of his coaching staff at Strasbourg as well. He has more experience. He probably has the most experience from it than anyone about what it's like working on the Blueco. So the sort of movable feast, the situation where Chelsea have, David, you can correct me here, 5 sporting directors?
Yeah, there or thereabouts. There's obviously the 2 main guys in Lawrence Stewart, Paul Winstanley, joined by Joe Shields and Sam Jewell. They've brought in Dave Fallows, formerly of Liverpool. And even in the wider group, they've got David Weir too. So it's an eclectic mix.
Okay, so Liam Rosenior's spoken to. I imagine Liam Rosenior's spoken to.
All, Carl.
Yeah,
and brief.
I'm sure Liam Rosenior has at least 3 of their phone numbers already, and I think that will help him. I also think the Chelsea squad has a lot of interesting disparate elements that, if blended correctly, could make a very, very good squad. And it seems like from his work at Strasbourg, he's good at bringing together very disparate elements. The way he's, from our October conversation, and the way he spoke about trying to get all these different elements from all these different parts of the world together into one melting pot of a dressing room was really, really interesting. I am very intrigued to see if he starts handing out player fines for lateness, because obviously he said he doesn't do that at Strasbourg, and he said he let certain players sort of activate when they believe they're ready to activate. I think he might change a little bit over time, but we'll see. Look, I think we're in a really, really interesting position in terms of the managerial market. I spoke to John McKenzie about this more than once, because he believes the managerial market might be a bit thinner than maybe 10 years ago. And I believe it's a situation where 2 or 3 of the big clubs have simply just gone through so many managers so quickly that it's created just a sort of a weird perceived aggro, if this makes sense. So, and I'm going to use Tottenham Hotspur as an example now. Tottenham Hotspur have had a lot of former Chelsea managers, and now I think Enzo Maresca is available, and I'm sure there is someone among the Spurs fan base has gone, should we go for Enzo? And their friends have gone, no, we can't have another former Chelsea manager. And that's caused this sort of weird back and forth. We're like, okay, so what actually is our version of what's a Chelsea manager in the 21st century? What's a Manchester United manager in the 21st century? There's also certain things of, the amount of compensation that's being paid out. And as David has said, loads more managers now seem wary about jumping in mid-season. So for Liam to jump in now and say, I have to, this is an amazing opportunity, all the best to him.
6-year contract, Carl, I'm reading.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, but what does that even mean, though? I mean, if they're not doing the job, I mean, we talk about these things, but does that really mean much if Chelsea don't qualify for Champions League next season, or they don't qualify for European football next season? We'll have to see.
We'll have to see. I think Chelsea are in a really interesting situation in that they have undoubtedly spent a lot of money on player trading, bringing players in, bringing players out. But also there are times where you look at the squad and you go, you could probably use with another centre-back, which is one of Enzo Maresca's complaints. And they could probably do with, I'll be super interested to know if Liam Rosenior has gone, is there any chance of getting Nico Jackson back from his loan from Bayern Munich? Because I think Chelsea could benefit from Jackson coming back.
Yeah, I've seen some of those comments as well in terms of Jackson versus Delap arguments. Anyway, let's move over to transfers because the second deal sheet of the January transfer window dropped on Tuesday morning, so make sure you check that out. The name on everyone's lips, David, is Antoine Semenyo, of course. What's the latest on him?
Next Bournemouth match is on Wednesday. I was trying to get my bearings.
Trying to get your head.
It's against Tottenham, and it will be the final match of Antoine Semenyo's Bournemouth career.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, breaking news.
Great news.
Well, it depends sort of what persuasion you are if you're a Manchester City fan, because that's basically the agreement that was struck between all parties, the 2 clubs and the player, that he would take part in Bournemouth's matches against Chelsea, Arsenal and Tottenham before heading on his way, after he reached an agreement or decided of all the suitors that he wanted to join City.
That's a bit cheeky, isn't it? Go play
I think
against.
It is. It's a bit unusual.
Go play against all of City's rivals, and then you can come.
And
doesn't seem to have worked out though.
Well, true. He's played well. Bournemouth have played well. They just haven't got the results. And there was also, Carl, an injury risk for him. But so far, he's navigated it well. And fingers crossed for the boy that he does so on Wednesday night against Spurs. And then after that, I would expect the steps to be taken to try and get that one wrapped up. It's not completed yet, but there's every expectation it will be. And we'll have to wait and see on the finances, whether it's the clause, whether it's outside the clause, which sometimes people do to improve the payment terms, contract lengths, medicals, and all that sort of thing. So Pep Guardiola is going to have Antoine Semenyo at his disposal for the second half of the season, which I think will excite Manchester City fans and a lot of neutrals like myself who have come to really admire Semenyo. He's one of the most productive players, attackers in the Premier League. I was at Liverpool for Bournemouth's opening match at Anfield on that Friday night where he tore them apart. He scored a couple, could have had more. And he's really fascinating. His journey's great, rejection, setbacks, and now success. Bournemouth, it leaves with a problem, a hole. They'll need to fill it.
Another hole they need to fill. I mean, they've had so many losses.
And credit to Bournemouth because they've got better each time. This is a testing period for
tricky
them.
One, yeah.
But having sold so many of their best players and to still be competitive, high quality is a tribute to the coach, Iraola, and to the executive structure and ownership up to Bill Foley. It's not been easy. They wanted Brennan Johnson as their first choice. He's gone to Crystal Palace. They've looked at some other options. They will continue to. They're going to have to step that up and get some reinforcements in. I'm not so sure it will be like for like, maybe more that they improve in different areas to compensate. And that's a big transfer, possibly the biggest of the entire window.
Okay, Carl, do City need him? They've got some great wide players already. We spoke to Dean Holden on this podcast and he spoke to us about how great this player is. But there's a certain Jeremy Doku, many people will be saying, is actually having quite a decent season.
Yes, I mean, I think Doku's having a great season. He seems to really have connected the dots on what he needs to do in the final third. And he looks frightening. Do they need Antoine Semenyo? Probably. I think Semenyo doesn't appear to be to Pep Guardiola's tastes. And this can happen. Pep Guardiola has quite specific requirements from his wingers, and he can change his mind on whether those wingers are up to the task. And as Semenyo seems increasingly deprioritized, it seems like the need for another player who is multi-talented and multifaceted in the final third is really, really important. I think Semenyo's work as part of the Iraola's high-pressing machine has a great appeal. And when I thought he might possibly join Manchester United, I watched a bunch of Semenyo games, wrote a piece on The Athletic, and my sort of glib takeaway for everyone to drop in their WhatsApp group chats was Semenyo in 2025 is what Sadio Mane was in 2016, in that Mane's final season at Southampton, you were looking at a player who could play across the front three, who could get a hat-trick in a game, and who very, very clearly was Champions League quarter-final quality, to my mind. Semenyo will make City better. Semenyo going to City makes me sad.
Embarrassment of riches.
Gluttonous.
All right.
How greedy.
How greedy. All right.
Continue the festive spirit. Just when I was trying to get back to full fitness.
All right, more questions in from the YouTube community. This one is still on City. We have actually had quite a few on City, David. This one says, with all their injuries in defence, what's the likelihood City try to sign Marc Guehi, given his contract runs out in the summer? One of many suitors, I can imagine.
They're very interested. They have been for a while. That has continued coming into this market. And the idea was that it would continue to next summer. The reason why it has increased in terms of their interest is because of the injuries. Gvardiol with his tibia fracture.
He had a fracture, yeah.
No full prognosis on Ruben Diaz, but we expect him to be out for a period of time. And so it looks like they're going to have a little push. Now, it will depend on whether a proposal comes to Crystal Palace and what that proposal is, whether a proposal comes to Marc Guehi, what that proposal is, how both Crystal Palace and Marc Guehi respond to that. It is no guarantee that they'll look favourably upon it. And there is an informal mutual understanding between Crystal Palace and Marc Guehi that we reported first in the transfer deal sheet. In the Athletic transfer radar. On Black Friday, I think it was, that he will see out the final months of his contract and leave as a free agent next summer. And I think minds are still in that place. It can change, of course, and let's see what the next days bring, because City are a tough proposition to turn down. But there will be strong considerations on his part. Does he want to leave Palace now? He's captain. They're in European competition. This was meant to be the final season. He had Liverpool last summer. He will have multiple options: Liverpool, Manchester City, Bayern Munich, and whoever else next summer. He's got a World Cup to focus on. Does he want to stay settled? Does he want to move up to Manchester? Does he want to be part of the City team for the rest of the season? There's been a bit of uncertainty about Pep Guardiola's future, about Manchester City's wider situation with the charges which remain unresolved. So much for him to consider. Crystal Palace, every player has their price. I'm sure they would do a deal. Will the number be right for them? Will it be good enough if it comes in to persuade Steve Parish to part with his captain, his talismanic centre-back, for the final 6 months of the season? Or do they say, no, we're just going to sit and benefit from him until the summer? This is by no means a foregone conclusion. Yes, they are there, but it's impossible to predict how it will end, and there is no guarantee that he will go there.
Yeah, Carl, Manchester City currently 6 points behind Arsenal. They've dropped points at Sunderland. They've also dropped points against Chelsea. Which one of these two players do you think they need the most in order to close that gap, Guehi or Semenyo?
Honestly, I think they need a solid defence. It's a really interesting one. And obviously, City had a very active January last year. They bought quite a few defenders, and yet I don't think those defenders are currently equipped for this moment in time of the Premier League. It's a bit similar to Chelsea, if this makes sense to them. It's a bit similar to Chelsea in that they have quite a few centre-backs. But if I went, who is the best centre-back in the air? You go, a little bit. Which obviously is a little bit funny because we're talking about Marc Guehi, who has many, many strengths, but he's not the most aerially dominant. So I can absolutely see why City are looking at the situation going, we need a centre-back. We've had some injuries. Nathan Ake also isn't playing as many minutes as he played in, let's say, the treble-winning season for them as well. I absolutely need one. And a deal for Guehi seems possible, but I'm not necessarily sure he's the sort of centre-back they should be going for this January. So, much to be said, much to be done. I have similar thoughts about Marc going to Liverpool as well. Of just, surely you need someone who's just a little bit more aerially dominant. But who knows? Maybe in a different environment, maybe on a different style of coaching, maybe you can find a way to maximise his strengths and making his, I don't even want to say it's a weakness, just not as strengths, less prominent. So we'll see. I think it's a very, very good football player, and I think he's entering a very intriguing part of his career, not just for club but also for country.
Okay. Final question on City here, David. This one's from Ro via YouTube saying...
City are popular today.
They're very popular. David, are Manchester City interested in Elliot Anderson? And what about the future of Rodri? He only has 18 months left on his contract.
No updates on Rodri. Obviously, he's critical to Manchester City, but we can't get away from his struggles returning from that horrible injury. And it wasn't just the ACL recuperation, but the collateral in terms of muscle strains and things that players who have followed similar paths incur, and you wish him all the best. There have been suggestions of new contracts. I just don't know where Man City are with that yet, and where Rodri is with it in his head, because it would largely be a decision for him as well. It will not stop Manchester City planning for the future, with or without him. Yet Elliot Anderson, we hear, is a player that they like. No surprise, all the top clubs like him, and most of them will be in the mix potentially. maybe with the exception of Arsenal, they're the ones who have a full midfield.
Midfield is pretty solid, yeah.
So whether it be a Manchester United, a Bayern Munich, teams on the continent, I heard Chelsea at one point. So I'm just saying that the leading lights will be after Elliot Anderson. No January move, that goes without saying. It will be too high a price. Even those that might be willing to commit the funds. I don't know how easy it would be from a PSR financial fair play perspective. You also need squad space. If you're bringing in somebody like that, he's already earning in excess of £100,000 a week. So you're going to have to take him higher, which means you'll probably have to move somebody of significant earning potential out, because there's no real gaps in Premier League squads with all this financial requirement these days. And above all of that, Nottingham Forest have zero appetite to trade him right now. The summer is a different story. Every player has their price. We're hearing figures 80, 100 million, maybe even more. He'll have a World Cup, fitness permitting, and probably start out there. Although people are telling me that won't affect the transfer in terms of, you get a higher price or you get more suitors or fewer suitors. They all like him. They'll know the kind of price. They'll pay it. Maybe stuff will even happen before the World Cup. And I expect City to be... when you speak to the clubs in the mix, they all expect City to be vying for his signature. Where he will end up is unclear right now.
Yeah, Manchester United need a midfielder. We've talked about Baleba, who's actually now into the quarterfinals with Cameroon for AFCON. But he could be a really good acquisition for Manchester United, couldn't he?
Elliot Anderson is very much on Manchester United's shortlist, as is Carlos Baleba. Baleba's been playing very well for Cameroon on their way to the quarterfinals. It's going to be an intriguing quarterfinal for them at the AFCON tournament as well. I can't see either one of these players moving in January. I mean, for the very simple reason, Baleba's not expected back to England for another 5-6 days, which will make doing all that finagling for that sort of money quite difficult. And as David has said, Nottingham Forest have absolutely no appetite to sell Elliot Anderson at this current point in time, if only because Nottingham Forest aren't quite safe from the relegation battle. One thing I want to get out the door right now is Elliot Anderson, phenomenal football player. There's a very, very high chance he's going to be exhausted in August. So didn't get last summer off because he was with the England under-21s for their Euros. Is likely to play the majority of England's minutes at the World Cup. Is doing the job of 1.5 midfielders right now in Nottingham Forest setup, because Douglas Luiz is injured, Ibrahim Sagare is currently away at AFCON, Ryan Yates is injured as well. Like he's doing a lot of running, and whoever gets him in the summer, and I believe he's not going to stay at Nottingham Forest, is going to get a very, very good football player. I just want to get out the door right now.
What, running on no gas?
He might be a little bit knackered at the start of next season.
All right. Okay. Well, let's wrap this up because the final question comes in about the league leaders. With Arsenal seemingly on course to a title halfway through the season, is there a sense from the hierarchy to get 1 or 2 reinforcements in the January window? Arteta has alluded to this in a press conference. I don't know how concrete that is, David. Any news?
I'm not aware of Arsenal making moves in the January transfer window at this point in time. We always add the caveat here. You don't know how things will develop and what opportunities arise. The market can move in weird and wonderful ways. And that's why, we address as the one to watch in the deal sheet this week, Manchester United. They're not planning to do anything of note. They're keeping their powder dry for the summer because largely of the situation Carl just described around the midfield. Despite the Amorim exit, the direction of travel remains the same. However, you never know if there are unexpected departures, there needs to be replacements. And it's a similar situation at Arsenal, Liverpool and other clubs. But I don't have any information to suggest Arsenal are looking at bringing players in at the moment. They've had periods of really heavy investment prior, most recently last summer. They have built an excellent and deep squad with sufficient resources even to withstand injury crises for the first time in history. And they are well blessed, well stocked. I don't see them really needing anything in this month based on what you can get from the market. And so they will look to strengthen again in certain positions in terms of probably starting and depth in the summer. That's the way they've been working under the Cronkies and Mikel Arteta and now Andrea Berta.
That might also include sales as well.
Yeah, exactly. It will have to, no doubt, because they've not sold a great deal and there will need to be some book balancing that goes on. So you never know if they bring in any younger players in January, and I'd extend that to other clubs, Man United, etc. But I think we're talking more here about senior manoeuvrings. You would think maybe there was a point where could there be departures in January to get people playing, like Gabriel Jesus as he was coming back from ACL, but then he starts playing at Arsenal.
And scores an important goal.
Scores an important goal and seems like actually he should stay. And people have said about players like Nwaneri not playing and Lewis Skelly and all this sort of conjecture, but there will be game time and opportunities. They're all valued members of the squads. There will be need through injuries. People can come in and out of form. We often just knee-jerk into he's going to go, he's going to stay, signings. But actually, I think it will be a calm month at Arsenal. And I'm not expecting a great deal of activity.
Would it be greedy for Arsenal to get another couple of players, Carl, just to get it over the line?
I think they're going to get over the line. I think they've done very well to deal with their centre-back injury, mini crisis there. And the way they've bounced back from the defeat to Aston Villa suggests to me, I mean, I've said it 2 or 3 times, I'll be so surprised if they don't have one of the big trophies come the end of the season. And when I mean big trophies, I'm talking Premier League, Champions League. They've done so well to address their weaknesses from the previous seasons in a way that seems simple if you're playing FIFA or Football Manager, but it's incredibly hard to do in real life. And even this sort of centre-forward conversation that I keep seeing when I'm talking to Arsenal fans seems to be resolving itself quite soon because Gabriel Jesus is returning to full fitness and Kai Havertz is coming back soon as well. So if you're an Arsenal fan, this is a great place to be. And no, you don't need to be greedy. You just need to wait for your big shiny trophy come May.
Yeah, good time to end it there, gents. Carl, appreciate your time. David, thanks for making the time for us in the studio. And also thank you guys for watching too. We'll be back soon. For more from the Athletic FC podcast, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. We've got top journalists like David Ornstein, Matt Slater, Adam Crafton, Carl Anka, and plenty more through the entire season. Make sure you don't miss an episode of the Athletic FC. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts from.